Yeah,
Check your temperature.
Okay. There we go.
Check the time for you. We're good.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Fredonia Central School District Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, October 24th, 2023. We start each meeting with a pledge to our flag. So if I could have Emma and Mia come forward. They're going to do this together. They're going to split the candy bar at the end, and they already know it, so don't complain to me that they didn't each get one of their own. Okay? Ready?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Snickers is okay.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. It's good to get every meeting started with kind of a presentation of our students. So we have an agenda for tonight's meeting. We do have on that, there's two addendum items. And we're going to get this on the floor and then we'll talk about things. So if I could have a motion for the agenda. Ms.
Second.
Fortner and Ms. Gullo. So we do have the two addendum items. One is item 7C1 where we're adding Pamela Maslock as a certified teacher assistant to the Purduing substitutes, and also a fundraiser for the solicitation of business for the middle school student council. Those are both addendum items that are part of consent. Also, the board was given a hard copy of the agenda on Friday, and on that written agenda, if we look at personnel items 7.1c and 7.2a, we have Christopher Fagan listed as a non-certified extended leave substitute. That should be a certified instead of non-certified, and that's because his qualifications came in since Friday.
Great.
So rather than putting him in as a non-certified and then next meeting changing it around, we're editing it tonight and approving it that way on consent. Okay? If there are any other questions or if anyone would like anything pulled out of the consent, we're all good? Okay. Then all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have reserved this time to hear comments from our audience. Typically, we ask that this time to hear from our audience is for agenda items, something that's on the agenda, but it kind of forces people to stick around for the whole thing. So if there's anything on the agenda, we'd appreciate it if you spoke now. And if there is something that isn't, we'll allow that too. So is there anyone who would like to address the board tonight? We have a mic. If you state your name and your address, please.
Hello, my name is Beverly Horrocks, and I live at 5481 Oakdale Avenue in Van Buren Point. So, I'm going to read my written part so I don't forget anything. Good evening, Dr. Ziliaks and board members. I have introduced myself, and I am a retired out-of-district, I did not retire from Fredonia, teacher who has been subbing in Fredonia in the pre-K, kindergarten, elementary, and middle school programs for over 10 years. I have a master's degree in education with a specialty in reading, certification in counseling, special ed counseling, and certification in learning disabilities. I have an extensive background in education, including behavior modification, and I get paid $115 a day, which is $4.37 less than a starting salary at Tim Hortons. It is time that Fredonia starts paying their substitute a competitive per diem wage. I spoke here over a year ago on this, as well as asking for training for substitutes, and was told that you, the board, were aware of the discrepancy of wages compared to other districts, but you were unaware of the lack of any formal training, especially with new substitutes. I did receive a handbook this year, given to me by the middle school secretary, which I truly did appreciate. But there's nothing in there to show us how to operate smart boards, Elmos, and other technology. Trust me, knowing how to operate this equipment is integral in maintaining a smooth operating classroom, especially when subbing. Tracking down someone who knows how the equipment works takes away instructional time from the students, from the substitute, and the teacher who's pulled out of their classroom to help. Calling technology doesn't help if no one is there. I do appreciate when I sub at Silver Creek that a tech checks in with all the subs every morning to make sure everything is working. We have gotten to know each other very well. Those of us seasoned warriors are used to chalkboards, projectors, and tape recorders as our media equipment. As far as competitive wages, I can only speak for Silver Creek at $150 a day for any retired teacher, and Dunkirk, which I have applied to, that starts at $165 a day and progresses upward based on your education and experience. For a district that prides itself for being one of excellence, the wages paid to substitutes is below expectations. Having good substitutes is a valuable commodity for any district. Having good experienced subs, even more so. Keeping them requires the districts to find the means to show them their value with the wages complementary and competitive. We have no other benefits. Tim Hortons at least gives a discount on the coffee. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board tonight? Okay. Oh, we do.
My name is Stephanie. I live on Chestnut Road in Dunkirk. I'm just here to talk about how my 4-year-old has been lost twice in the past 2 weeks here at Fredonia. Teachers have been putting her on the wrong bus. The bus is dropping her off at the wrong location. She's been dropped off at a daycare twice now. The bus has left her there. And the daycare had to call them and say that this isn't our child, she doesn't belong here, and we don't know where she goes. The bus didn't know where to drop her off. She was lost for a good 10 minutes. And that's a really scary 10 minutes for a parent. And I know I'm not the only parent that has lost their child, has been put on the wrong bus, and she's 4. She doesn't know where she's supposed to go. She listens to her teachers. Teacher tells her where she's supposed to go. She just kind of listens. So I don't really know what to do. Talked to the principal, talked to the superintendent. Nothing is happening. I asked to switch teachers. That's apparently not going to happen. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that, and I don't know what there is to do. Thanks.
Stephanie, your last name?
Kaminsky?
Kaminsky.
Yeah.
Okay. I can only say, Ms. Kaminsky, that I would be terrified if that were to happen to myself or one of my daughters. So I totally understand where you're coming from. Thank you. Anyone else like to address the board? Okay, thank you. Next, we have the approval of minutes from our regular meeting from October 10th as submitted. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor for approval?
So moved.
Ms. Khan, and a second.
Second.
Mr. Marshall. Any questions, comments, corrections, amplifications? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have the approval of minutes from the Policy Committee meeting of October 10th as submitted. Could I have a motion to approve those, please?
So
Second.
Mr. Johnston. He beat you out.
You did?
Yeah. He was louder. Any corrections, questions on those minutes? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have special presentations, and Marie Fagan from our middle school math and Amy Lauer from our middle school science on a model schools conference they attended this summer.
Yeah, just want to provide a little intro before I turn it over. And first, thank you to both of our speakers. We appreciate your input here tonight, and we pride ourselves as a governance team on listening and doing our best to adjust and adapt based on that feedback. But as we are here tonight, a couple years ago we started with a series of presentations here at our board meetings. It kind of started with the idea of how can we get a better understanding of our instructional program, or what's happening at the classroom level. And then it kind of changed into how are some of those things supporting our mission and vision about students becoming their greatest selves, or innovation, or being dynamic or global within what we're doing in the classroom. And in this case, we first of all want to thank Mrs. Fagan and Ms. Lauer for being here. We also want to thank them for being willing to participate in professional learning, especially beyond the school year. And there are some provisions in the FTA contract for teachers to take advantage of opportunities that the district supports beyond school hours, and in this case over the summer. So thank you both for being willing to participate. And I'm a little bit of a history guy, so we went back and kind of looked at each of your careers here in Fredonia, and that was kind of fun. And there's some real commonalities between the two of you. Now, Mrs. Fagan, we understand that you're a graduate of Lakeshore, correct? And so that must mean you're an Eagle. Is that correct? Very nice. So,
I was.
you know, I was able to make some connections that we'll pull up a minute here to your alma mater in terms of some senior photos and whatnot. So we'll take a minute there. But Marie was tenured here in the district in 2002, and she was not only local in terms of high school, but she attended SUNY Fredonia as well. Miss Lauer, now she's a Williamsville East graduate, so it sounds like you probably were a flame. Is that accurate? Okay. So we have some information to share here later on as well. Tenured here in 2006. And it was interesting to know that your master's initially from UB was in pathology, if that's correct. Then you went back to Dewville and got your teaching certificate. But each of them, over their careers here at Fredonia, have been instructional leaders to participate in some of our conversations around curriculum and learning and instruction and all that. Both of you have been involved in our service learning club, I believe. Both of you have been involved in cross-country to some extent, or running to some extent. And I think you were also at one part of a mini makerspace group or committee here at Fredonia. So thank you for all of the above. Now, unfortunately, the files that we received from your alma maters, we were not able to open. I don't know if we're just so advanced in our technology, these older files. We don't need to get into the year of your graduation, maybe didn't convert. But that was disappointing, but we did make an effort to share that, so maybe that's a relief. If you can picture in your brain right now those senior pictures, they could be up here side by side right now.
We look exactly the same.
I
bet you think do.
I could see that. But we're glad that you're here to just share a little bit of information about the conference you attended and maybe what that means to what's happening now, either within your own classroom and maybe what that might mean for the building. Ms. Trotman, anything that you would like to add?
I think you've done more than enough. Very thorough.
Well, thank you for having us. You know, I think this is my 21st year here, and Marie has been my partner the entire time, right? So, not only in the classroom, but you'll find us on Sunday mornings running around town together as we talk about and digest our week too. So, it's a pleasure to have her by my side. So we did settle on the Model Schools Conference. We looked at a bunch of conferences when we thought about what we wanted to do for professional development and kept coming back to the Model Schools Conference. Probably, I'm estimating about 10 years ago, we brought in, or the district brought in, Dr. Bill Daggett, and he presented a few times about a framework that he called the Rigor, Relevance, and Relationships Framework. And basically, how could we level up? You know, how could we increase the level of rigor our children were encountering? How could we make it more relevant to them? And how could we leverage relationships to lead to greater student achievement? So in looking at the conferences that were available, we knew that several teams had gone to model schools before and brought back really interesting strategies and information that had moved us forward in different ways as a district. We knew that we could go and see schools of similar demographics and talk to people face-to-face about what they've encountered and what they've changed. So it seemed like a good fit for us. After we went to the conference, we reflected upon what we wanted to share with you and kind of came across three main themes that we'll briefly describe for you. So we're going to go to the next slide.
So starting with adolescent development, some of the workshops that we attended, we learned a lot about brain science and the science of learning and brought home some strategies to bring to our classrooms. Things like retrieval practice, which is focused on the act of like the struggle of remembering. So just some different activities to help the kids continuously reviewing, and there were some games and things like that included in you know what we brought back with us. And so including movement in our classroom to keep the kids engaged, to keep the kids focused. Thinking visible was another strategy that they talked about, using images to encourage their curiosity and increase that engagement again. So a lot of different like specific things that we can do in our classroom that all relate back to that science of learning. So that was all, I thought, very interesting. There was, I think, a couple of workshops we went to. We went to a lot of different workshops. It was a very big conference. And I think you are going to share more about that, the generations.
Some of the really interesting information, I think we're all intrigued by our own development, you know, and how that relates to where people are currently. So the age group that Marie and I are working with in grade 8 are currently Gen Z, right? And so we learned a lot about what that generation has gone through as they've been growing and developing. And they are really purpose-driven kind of individuals, and they learn best by doing, right? So trying to provide students with experiences is one of the things that we have our goal working towards in our classrooms, but also as a team, as, you know, math, science, social studies, ELA, and our expo teachers. Specifically, our science program that we just adopted, with the help of Dr. Wright and Ms. Stroman, focuses on experiences in science. So within that program, there is an experience in every unit for children, whether it's an engineering experience or a real-world experience. It helps the children really take abstract concepts and make them more concrete and relevant to themselves. You see an increase in engagement, motivation, and overall learning. So in addition to that, one of those critical pieces in terms of being aware of adolescent development and that those impacts on instruction, we know that families and community also play a large role in that achievement too.
Okay, so this is kind of a big and broad one with family and community engagements. It's something that we both talked a lot about and how much improvement we can bring to this aspect of our classrooms, to our school, really, like including our families more, like possibly creating a team newsletter that we could send out, making sure our parents can know what's happening in our classrooms, creating more, I guess, culturally inclusive events for students to be a part of. We talked about just trying to bring parents into events and trying to make that a little bit more inclusive. But there's a lot of room for improvement on this one. There's a lot of places that we can take this in the classroom. One of the things that I intend to work with the students on is just sharing positives. So one of the things we talked about at one of the workshops is just to increase our own motivation, to share just anything. It doesn't have to be school related, but just any positive for your day, and just something to do every single day, something to celebrate. So they talked about journaling it or just talking with it, so that's something that I would like to bring back into my classroom.
And along these lines of just providing some safe way for students to socialize with each other that isn't necessarily during the academic day. So what could we do outside of school hours to bring the kids back into the building in a way where they can just spend some time together in a socially appropriate way, and maybe with some guidance from adults to learn how to do those social skills. And how can we incorporate those families to feel like they could help us with that, right? And, you know, turning back to that cultural awareness piece, do our students feel like they're seen? Is there artwork that represents them on the walls? Does the library represent all cultures? And how can we take advantage of the variety or the diversity that we do have to help make everyone feel welcome? You know, and that's one of our goals as a team is to work on how can we start, you know, making these events happen with some regularity. So taking that as a broad piece, looking more personally and on an individual level, we were talking about leveling up. And I always can start this one right. Okay, so the keynote speaker at the conference was a gentleman named Brian Leake, who is an executive coach. And he works obviously with helping people reach their personal best. So he said, you know, how can you get people excited to do what they do, right? And he had a list of 7 questions that he encouraged people to ask themselves. Basically trying to get people to, how can you lead yourself when there's no one else around to lead you, right? So a path of personal empowerment. And I could read you all 7 questions, but there were 2 that really stood out to me. And the first one was, what's it like to be on the other side of me, right? So a self-awareness piece. So how do people perceive, like, how do they react to me, or what am I putting out to them? And am I kind? Am I, you know, compassionate? What's that reception? And also to have students ask that question, what's it like to be on the other side of me? You know, am I harsh? Am I critical? Am I friendly? Am I open to people? So that was a piece I know that stood out to me.
Yeah. I mean, I had the same as far as one of my most, you know, like reflective questions, just that idea of self-improvement, and, you know, I don't know what more to say. But as Amy said, you know, what am I putting out there? What are people seeing when I'm there in front of the classroom? Am I giving them what they need?
So the second question was what he termed an investment question, is who am I paving the way for, right? So who took a chance on you, and who do you need to take a chance on, right? So sometimes you're maybe met with someone who's a little bit frustrating, or maybe not as open to an idea that you would like them to be. Are you willing to take a chance on them? You know, and can you help level them up or take them to the next level? So sometimes we rely a lot, or our thinking is limited by what available monetary resources do we have to move a program forward, or what can we pay into something, right? When if you can change your mindset, you might still be able to move forward to reach your goals in the absence of certain other resources. So that was our takeaway, and hopefully some of our potential impacts, both in our classrooms, at the team level, and hopefully pushed out towards the building level. So we would love to entertain your questions.
Board have any questions?
Two questions. One, would you be willing to share all 7 questions with the board?
Thank you.
I would be very curious, because those 2 are very intriguing, so I would be very curious about the other 5. And then I guess, is there something specific that you have been able to apply from the conference that you've really just like, wow, this has made a difference, or that you can see already?
I think in the short time that we've been back to school, I think the experiential, purpose-driven kind of instruction has made a big difference. I've had a couple of kids that specifically come to class that are like, okay, what's our do today? What are we doing?
Fun.
And, you know, I think science lends itself really easily to experiential learning. You know, it's fun to try and do chemistry experiments and watch things bubble and fizz to make that concrete. So I definitely see an engagement level with the doing. That's great. It's awesome.
Thank you so much. I'm wondering, you spoke about culturally inclusive events and possibly having some outside the school day, and I'm wondering if you have brainstormed any ideas for that.
We brainstorm.
That's what our running time is for on Sunday. So we thought about, you know, as we get into the winter months, if we could do some kind of like, whether it's movies and food and that along those lines, and just asking families to help us figure out what kind of you know, food contributions we should be thinking of, or what sort of things could include the tastes from all different cultures, or you know, movement from all cultures, or you know, whatever videos are out there. We are kind of still in the planning stages, but those are some of the ideas that we've kind of thrown around.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I love the mindset piece. It's, you know, mindset, attitude of a class, turning that around, big dividends. So it's great to hear that. And I'd like to have all 7 also. I
We'll
need them
email you
too,
all
so
7.
Thank you.
thank you.
So have you done anything as far as presentations to other teachers in the middle school, or high school, or elementary for that matter?
Well, we are fortunate to meet with our team every week.
Okay.
So at our team meeting with our social studies and other science teachers and other math and English teachers and world language teachers, we talk about the things that we would like to incorporate and plan and the why behind them. So we've started at our team level, which potentially could have a big impact because they see, you know, lots of children on their own, and some of them are shared staff amongst the grade levels or buildings. So hopefully that will, you know, kind of spread that way. But certainly we could visit with others at other building levels too.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Hey, one little fun fact as we walk down memory lane is we happen to come across Miss Fagan's handwritten essay that she wrote when she first applied for a job here. Now, we were going to read some excerpts from that and sort of break those down, but I think because of time, we're gonna hold on that. But we were able to supply her with a copy. Excellent penmanship, by the way.
Well, thank you. I'm sure that had a little bit to do with the student teaching I did here at Wheelock. Taught me how to write on the board to make sure that my first graders could read that.
So anyway, enjoy reflecting on that.
Thank you.
Just
Yeah, it's
still,
lovely.
I think it still holds true today.
Thank you very much. Next, we have the financial treasurer's report with budget status, investment, and revenue reports.
And sorry, guys, we know that you have a lot of grading and whatnot to do, so if you guys are gonna step out, we totally understand.
Thank you.
I'm gonna kick it on over to Mr. Forbes here.
I will kind of address A, B, and C altogether, using the dashboard and the other reports. So July and August, there's not really a lot of things that happen. Two primary revenue sources for the month was about $30,000 in non-resident tuition. Part of the policy is that the tuition families have to pay 25% before school starts, so that's normal. And then also we picked up almost $12,000 in interest earnings through the, mostly through the T-bills, which are on the investment report. The rates continue to be good in the low 5 range, and they're still holding that way even this week. So that's all good news, because that'll help us eventually exceed our budgeted revenue amount. As far as the dashboard itself, I didn't really make any changes other than to update the year-to-date expenditure and revenue columns. The other estimated ones going off for July and August, there's really not a whole lot happening that you can make an adjustment for it one way or the other. So as we get farther into the fall, we'll begin to move those a little bit based on what we see.
Anything in your estimation that's out of balance or higher, considerably lower?
Not through July and August, it's just the activity's not really
That's,
great.
wouldn't expect it, but just to ask. Okay. Any questions from the board on those three reports? Okay. And I'm expecting with tax revenue coming in, we'll see our investment revenue increasing
Oh yeah,
considerably.
we're considerably above this number right now.
Yeah, good. Okay, so if I could have a motion to bring the treasurer's report to the floor for approval. Ms. Gullo, and a second, Ms. Tom. Mr. Forbes, any comment?
No.
Nothing? The pluses equal the minuses.
That's a good thing.
Everything is all good. Okay. Any questions from the board? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have a first student transportation contract for approval from Foster Placement in Brockton to our district. If I could have a motion to bring that to the floor, please.
So moved.
Mr. Marshall and Mr. Johnston? Okay. Mr. Ziliaks?
Yeah, not much to share here, just another example of a somewhat unique situation in the district and us needing to get students to school. So this is the result here and the resolution involving this particular run.
And even though they're in the Brockton district, we are contractual, we're state mandated to bus them back to Fredonia.
Well, I think in the initial phases here, we never know how long-term things will be. And in the moment, we want to provide that stability for students. So until we get a better sense of what exactly is happening, what the duration might be, we want to keep students engaged in their home school as much as possible.
Great. Any questions from the board? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have the approval of a bid from FSC Systems regarding the capital project outlay at Wheelock, with construction total of $32,300. I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please.
So moved.
Ms. Gullo, and a second.
Second.
Ms. Mr. Ziliak.
Yeah, we are excited to be moving forward with a new phase after a rebid for the Wheelock entryway project. And this specifically connects to the access controls, the door hardware, and the intercom scope for communicating in and out of the new office that will be established there. So this is good news. Thanks to Young and Wright for turning this around very quickly, and we're back on track and making progress as soon as possible on the entryway at Wheelock. The next resolution is also connected to the same in that it involves the
Cameras.
cameras for the same entryway, but it's two separate bids, so two separate resolutions. But again, we look forward to getting this wrapped up as soon as possible. Questions from the board?
Just to clear up, so this is everything that we were waiting on, so now we're ready to move forward. Are there any remaining pieces that are still?
Yeah, so there's nothing remaining, it's just a little bit more piecemeal than it was. Like, we have purchased the actual teller or transition window separately. So it's all coming together, it's just a little bit more separated out, because that was the quickest way to get the purchase orders moving forward, and also the quickest way that we could get materials on site. So.
And we had discussed the difference in cost, total cost, as opposed to what our previous bid was on this. Could you just comment on that?
Yeah, we are in the same ballpark. There's a couple little pieces here that are helping us maintain that same level. And again, remember, a capital outlay project is capped at $100,000. So one of the things that Young and Wright discovered is that when you do work on an entryway, there's some smart school monies that can be applied to that, about roughly $10,000. So technically, we're a little bit over where we wanted to be, but through that reduction, we're going to be right in that same amount. I don't know, John, if there's anything to add there.
Nope, you got it.
Questions? I think that we're moving forward, which is always a very positive thing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. And then that takes us right into the capital outlay project phase 1 for the cameras, total of $7,070. We're going to have a motion on that, please.
So moved.
Ms. In a second.
Second.
Mr. Marshall. Sorry. You've already explained this, but any questions from the board? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have the approval of a letter of resignation for the purpose of retirement for Rhonda Lee, high school science teacher. If I could have a motion to bring that to the floor for approval.
So moved.
Mr. Johnson, in a second.
Second.
Ms. Hall-Fortner. Mr. Ziliak.
Yeah, I'll turn it over to Mr. Paschke in a second. We certainly want to recognize Mrs. Lee for her 16 years of service in Fredonia. From my perception of being around the building, being around her classroom, she seems to be a very calming, level-headed instructor who goes about her business in a very positive, professional, polite way. And since this has came up, I've got some feedbacks from people who saw the agenda and expressed a loss for the district. We're happy to have her staying with us till the end of the year. Kind of an unusual time to get a retirement letter, but I think she had made up her mind and was ready to kind of cement that as her plan moving forward. Mr. Paschke.
Yeah, she's amazing. We're going to miss her. Definitely a loss to the district. She's certified in both biology and chemistry, which is an extremely helpful position to have in a school. So that's also a vacancy that we're going to be needing to look for. Having had some discussion with her prior to her putting in the letter, she wanted to make sure that we had ample time and to let us know early so we could start looking, which I think is amazing on her part, that she was willing to do that. But as much as I tried to convince her to stay at least another year, she was not willing to. She's one of the first people here every day. I come in early to work out at 5 in the morning, and I just started that a couple months ago. And I remember coming in, and as I was walking out, I expected the building to be completely empty. And she was just walking down the hall going to get some water for coffee, and scared the heck out of me. But she's here every single day, super early, and she's preparing for her kids. She'll stay late. She does all of the extra things just because she knows it's good for the kids, and that's been her bottom line always. is it good for kids, and then she does it. So I will miss her. Thank you. Many thanks to her.
And that's 16 years of service to the district.
Correct. Yep.
Questions from the board? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. And that takes us right into our superintendent's report.
Yeah, have a couple different things for tonight. If I can get to my page here, you noticed in the agenda, we had minutes from our policy committee, which is made up of 3 of our board members, along with myself and Ms. Hines Morrison. And we have 2 policies on the agenda tonight for our first read. And one of them involves the wellness updated policy. I wanted to say thanks to James Hobbs, who is our new health and wellness coordinator, also to Amy Piper, who's been our admin representative for a number of years, and also to Joanne Lauder, who has been helpful in the past, really promoting health and wellness across the district in a number of different positions. A couple of things this policy does is it adds the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program Director, also known as SNAP, to our Wellness Committee. Usually that's our food service director. It clarifies that the superintendent, the building administrators, and the school wellness coordinator are responsible for the oversight and implementation of this policy. It ensures that we notify the public of the policy and any updates, which we will do through our website and social media. It also outlines what is called the triennial assessment, which is an assessment that we do roughly every 3 years that demonstrates the extent to which we are in compliance with this policy, the extent to which this policy compares to others in the area, and how we are making progress in areas that are in need of improvement. And this will be conducted later in this year, and we just had a meeting recently to begin to process how we will go about it. It outlines that this policy needs to be updated every 3 years. It outlines the health and nutritional requirements for our school meals. It also ensures that any food sold during the school day will meet the requirements for the USDA Smart Snacks in Schools nutritional standards, which is a work in progress right now. And it also outlines guidance for lunch periods, physical activity during the school day, community partnerships, and professional learning. I don't know if there was any questions related to the wellness committee, the wellness policy. Again, the committee vets all this. We had about a discussion for roughly an hour on this particular policy. We also appreciate Mr. Paschke joining us for that conversation, as a lot of these things tend to play out in the high school with the locker stop and some of the snacks and other things that happen at the high school regarding food. We also looked at our concussion management policy. This policy is more about tweaks in the language than any really broad or sweeping changes. I had a chance to connect with Dr. Bishop after we had reviewed this policy as a committee, and he really helped me understand from his perspective that he describes our protocols to be robust for concussions and in line with what is happening in sports medicines today. He was glad to know that we were working with our local fire department to ensure that we have EMTs on the sidelines and in closer proximity to our student athletes during at least our football games. He appreciated that we were revisiting and sharing information with our coaches related to concussion procedures, policies, as well as other injuries. And he is fully in support of the requirements for our coaches. And here's a couple that we talked about. All of them take New York State Department of Ed refresher course in CPR and AEDs every 2 years. The same course in first aid every 3 years. They review and develop the concussion checklist discussed during preseason meetings with Mr. Lauer. To be used when evaluating for possible concussions. When an athlete has been hit in the head, or we believe has been hit in the head, or has potentially bumped their head off the ground, or whatever the situation might be. This checklist is implemented, and the students are asked a series of questions. If any of those questions, the response is yes. For example, do you feel dizzy? Do you feel nauseous? Is your vision blurred? The student is immediately removed from the competition, and a recommendation is made for them to be evaluated by a doctor. All our coaches are told, and I believe exercise good judgment and erring on the side of caution when dealing with any head injury. In terms of football itself, we also have been using what are called guardian caps. We have about 35 of those. Those are padded headgear that goes over the helmets during practice, and that just helps eliminate some of the contact. And those have become popular over time. We also purchase the highest quality helmets that are 5-star rated and offer the most protection for our students. So again, thanks to Mr. Lauer as AD for overseeing those requirements, and also making sure our equipment is quality equipment. This policy itself has been adjusted to ensure that each time a coach receives and updates their training, the certificate of completion is forwarded directly to our AD here at school, and the system that he used to track coaches' training is updated on an ongoing basis. It also includes the provisions that we need to include a link on our website where our concussion protocols are housed, which we have talked about recently, for both the New York State Ed and the New York State Departments of Health. We will work on having that happen before the second reading of the policy. The policy outlines that our district physician will collaborate with our district regarding our baseline concussion testing, which happens at the beginning of each season, and also be part of the process for clearing students when they return to practice or play. Lastly, it outlines that this policy will be reviewed at least every three years, if not more. Any questions on the concussion protocol?
Just a question regarding the training. Is it for head coaches, paid coaches, volunteer coaches?
Yeah, for us, it's anybody who serves in a coaching capacity, volunteer, paid, assistant, head, whatever they are coaching in the district, they go through those protocols.
Yeah, offer, I'm a volunteer coach and I go through the training. And also, I'm glad you brought up the helmets, because we have the highest rated helmets on a football team that you can get, which is a very big piece, because they're not cheap. They're not cheap. So.
Very good. I also wanted to touch base on our building condition survey process, which we've had ongoing conversations about, and which will carry over into the formulation of a potential capital project for improvements to our facilities across the district. Please know that the BCS, or the Building Condition Survey, takes into account all aspects of our facilities and encompasses a wide variety of elements in play, both in and outside of our school buildings. This process is being conducted by our district architect, which is Young and Wright out of Buffalo. Although this process has a global focus, this does not mean that there will not be discussion regarding individual areas of focus throughout our larger facilities. For example, perhaps our athletic fields or our athletic facilities, which there's been ongoing discussion about as well across the district, as well as here at our board meetings. We understand that there are a variety of subgroups of individuals in the community that may be honing in on one area to consider for improvements. But we also want to recognize that it's difficult to look at things in isolation without considering the larger project or the needs of the district. So there's obviously a balance between the big picture and those individual areas where we're looking to improve, or our community is looking to improve. And we will certainly pay attention to all of that in this process. Young and Wright will be here at our board meeting on November 28th to recap the entire process and also share with us their initial findings. They will be outlining work that they believe should be completed as part of this process and work that could be completed as part of this process. In other words, they're looking at items that they believe we need to complete as opposed to items that we would like to or want to complete. We are looking forward to receiving this information and beginning the process of looking at next steps for our district. As you might know, we have been listening and will continue to listen to thoughts, concerns, and questions from our school community. The input from our community causes us to assess, reflect, consider how we can adjust and adapt, and also how we can process what needs to happen or not happen moving forward as a district. We will be building community input and feedback into our process for reviewing this information. There are a few different ways in which this can be done, like surveys, community forums, and also a committee or committees. My recommendation here tonight, although this is just a concept at this time, no final decision has been made, this is an ongoing discussion amongst our governance team, would be to pursue a combination of both community forums and also surveys. This would ensure that we will give everyone a chance to participate with no one smaller group having more input than others. The forums could begin, would begin with an update from the school district and then would allow opportunity for input and feedback from the community. One option would be to begin these forums as soon as December, based on the initial findings from Young and Wright. The surveys would further ensure that everyone would have a chance to share their thoughts, especially those who cannot attend our forums or those who may not be likely to speak out in person or in public. Again, this is still consideration and part of a discussion here tonight with the Board of Education. At the same time, we have reached out to our financial advisors to better understand the options for financing capital projects and what impact it may or may not have to our taxpayers. On the screen behind us, Young and Wright has provided, and I don't know if it'll look, well, that's not too bad. What you'll see here across the top and in the blue square to the left here is almost where we are right now. It says December, but it's the BCS or the building condition turnover. So that's going to happen November 28th. Again, we invite anyone to come and attend. So in the beginning of the year, there's a few different things that happen. And by doing potentially the community forums, we're blurring some of these together, or we're potentially blurring some of these things together. There's certainly review and prioritization of the items Young and Wright will bring to us. There's definitely the opportunity for admin and board of education workshops in which we might meet as a smaller group. But you see one of the key things there is principal and community communication. In this model, that happens a little bit later in the process. What we're potentially suggesting is that we build this in to the process along the way with a series of forums that would take place throughout this whole process. Eventually, we're going to get to a place, hopefully near the end of the school year, into the summer, where we're determining the final scope and budget for a particular process. In between, let's say the end of the school year, the summer, and about a year from now, we would be going through steps to make sure that any environmental issues that could be part of a process or concerns would be addressed. We'd have several board resolutions that would approve that scope and sequence of project, and we'd also, again, be finalizing things in public and allowing people to have input. Eventually, there's a publication of a legal notice that needs to be given prior to a potential vote in the community, and in this model, we'd be looking at doing that, again, right about a year from now in early December next year. So, again, this isn't written in stone. This is a projection. This is giving us an idea of where we would be. There is an opportunity to bump this up and do something quicker, and I don't think we'll be looking at doing anything beyond this timeline, but that would be a possibility too, if for some reason that came into play. So again, this is an example, not something that we've committed to at this point, but I just wanted to give some sense of what that might look like over time. So I wanted to throw it out to the board for comments, suggestions, other ideas, as might pertain to this conversation.
It's helpful to start seeing this, and I know that you can appreciate as soon as you put a timeline up, people are gonna start pushing it. So I will ask the question, what opportunities, what resources would be required to condense this time frame to, get things moving a little bit more quickly? Do we know what those are, and how could we support that?
Yeah, so I think that would be, and I made Young and Right aware of some conversations that we've had about a shorter timeline. I think they'll be prepared to address that on the 28th. And I think there's no other way to do it other than it just condenses everything. And we would have to really begin moving forward quickly. I didn't hear anybody necessarily say that's out of the question, although I did see some concern on some faces of something that might be a little shorter.
When, we will have a Young and Right report, so that's kind of an outside resource. Presumably some of the environmental pieces, some of those things, but would the rest of it be managed internally by our internal resources in terms of all of the community components and all of those, so that we would have more control over the timing of those activities?
Yeah, absolutely. That's our decision. Now, they are more than willing to support what we're doing and attend meetings as long as we can find times that are agreeable. So I don't want to give you the impression that they are not willing to be involved, but they understand that that's a district decision. And, I think they can outline perhaps some of the challenges and some of the things that would need to happen. And I'd rather have them do that than kind of go from memory right now.
Yeah, because it seems at our facilities, at the Zoom, she did say some things that were there some approvals or something that during those processes are not in either of our hands, I thought. But again, I don't remember exactly which parts.
Yes.
But I think there were some that were state
The state,
approvals and.
there was, state in there, the state, she said, it goes to the state, and we have to wait for the state.
Yeah. And as you know, we find ourselves in that situation in a number of different ways. We talked a lot about teacher certification to start the year, and some backlog and turning those around. And the same thing happens in other areas with the state too. In moments, they might project approval taking, whether it's 3 to 4 weeks or 3 to 4 months, and sometimes that doesn't always happen.
Well, I'm excited that we are going to finally have some control over it. I mean, Young and Right said it would be a year. It's not like they're delayed. They said late fall last year, but the ball's been in their court the whole year. But now, after the blue there, it'll come to us, and it'll be our motivation. Our motivation, so.
Mr. Ford, one question on the debt cycle. Is there anything falling off in the next 2, 3, 4 years?
Yeah, there's a couple. There's one later this year, I believe, and then another one in 2026-ish. So we're going to have a meeting next week with Maggie from Municipal Solutions. She's going to go over all those scenarios.
Okay.
The one thing I will say about the timing of the vote, which we saw last time we had a project, is if you do a December vote, we had very good bid results because we were at the front of the construction season. If you have a May or June or July vote, and you're going out to bid in the height of the construction season, particularly with the Bills Stadium drawing workers, that may be something for consideration.
Yeah. About how much debt is falling off, do you know? I know I'm catching you cold, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, not offhand.
Okay.
Just, again, I think Mr. Johnston makes a great point that we have a really clear line on November 28th of having that report. Can we get things on the books for December to start these next things? Because I think it's very easy, right, that December will slip from us, January, So is it possible, knowing that this is coming, to get some dates on the books and start that community process?
Sure. I wasn't sure if we had settled on that model or we were looking at other options, so absolutely. I wasn't making any assumptions about what the conversation might be here tonight.
I do like the idea of the public forum, at least as an initial step to bring people out and see what initial thoughts are. So I think that is at least a good starting point, and surveys are always easy enough to send out, so.
And I like the survey idea because it gets the entire community, it forms, some people come, but not everybody, so having surveys, is a good idea for sure.
Is this something that the facilities committee is here to organize?
I would think that would make sense. And I think, you made some comments recently about really connecting with that group. It's an existing committee that, this is part of the roles and responsibilities, so, yeah. I think that would be a natural connection. Any questions?
Okay, so the next regular Board of Education meeting will be in 2 weeks, Tuesday, November, 3 weeks. 3 weeks. November 14th, 6 o'clock, right here in the high school library. I will remind the board that on November 8th, we have a retreat. There is a survey out, Mr. Johnson had sent out. I don't know who has filled it in, who hasn't. It's pretty quick, very quick, so doesn't take much time. If you haven't filled it in, survey closes next Monday, October 30th at 9 a.m. So get that out. This retreat, as far as the public is concerned, it is not open to the public. We will not be discussing business, and therefore we can have a group of board members so long as we're not conducting business, but we are doing professional development for the board. So, with that, Mr. Johnston.
Anybody else want to start?
Yeah.
Okay. No, thanks for the presentation tonight. I mean, I love the idea of attitude, and that's one of the few things you can control in life is your attitude, so bringing that to students is great, so I thought it was a very powerful presentation. That's all.
Nothing just excited about our facilities report and moving things forward.
Just excited about moving forward with things. That's it.
Well, I enjoyed the presentation. I loved who took a chance on you and who can you take a chance on. I thought that was so impactful. And I also just wanted to thank Stephanie Kaminsky for coming in and sharing what happened. As someone who once had a missing child, I know how that can go from 0 to 1,000 very quickly. And I think as a school district, the bare minimum we can guarantee or provide to our families is safe passage of children to and from school. And so I'm very happy you brought that to the attention of the board, and believe me, we will act on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Forbes?
Nothing.
Nothing? We're messing things up, Ms. Piper.
Oh, I love it.
You gotta stay on top here. Anything to add?
Yeah, I also want to thank Stephanie for coming in this morning. We've spoken on the phone a couple of times, and I appreciate your courage in coming forward and speaking about that, because I know it was terrifying, and thank you for keeping us on the mark. I also want to thank the board. We have cafeteria window covering out a lot. If you drive by, it looks amazing. So it's been a while coming, and it just really helps. Safety is a big concern, as we all know, at WELAC, and this is another layer that shows us that we're working in the right direction, so it looks great. So if you haven't driven by WELAC, drive by, it is awesome. I also want to put a shout out to Samantha Heights. Samantha single-handedly really put together the library at WELAC and has made it so kid-friendly, and to lose her, Darren, to the high school is a loss, because she really has made it welcoming and charming, and really just did it on her own accord, put it all together in her vision, and so I want to thank Samantha for that, because the kids love the library at WELAC, and it's very welcoming, and we just appreciate her work there.
Thank you for doing that shout out. I think that the board sometimes doesn't hear these extraordinary efforts
Pretty cool.
on the behalf of the district from individuals, and we would never know otherwise. But thank you.
Great.
Yeah. Ms. Farrow.
Well, I was over at WELAC yesterday and I forgot to tell you how nice the window covering looks, so yeah, I'm glad you reminded me about that. I want to read something to you. So, and I hate reading things to people, but one of the teachers in my department, excuse me, sent me an email, and I thought it really just illustrated helping students become their best selves. So this is a high school teacher, and she said that my resource room has been doing a unit on Temple Grandin. We watched a few of her TED Talks and delved into exploring different types of minds and learning styles. My students took surveys to determine their learning style and explored strategies to help them become better learners. As we began, we had an open discussion about what autism looks like. This allowed students to ask questions, allowed for misconceptions to be corrected, and for the expectation of empathy and understanding to be set. Students have been highly engaged and have asked thought-provoking questions. They've connected with Dr. Grandin as she thinks in pictures, and that allowed students to see that they are not alone. The perseverance and determination of Dr. Grandin has been inspiring to students, and they have been brainstorming ways that they can overcome challenges and set new goals for this school year. They have come to recognize that the way they treat others, especially those who are different, matters. A line from some of the videos that stuck out the most in my class is different, not less. I'm very proud of both the personal and academic work that they have been doing as we finish this unit. So I just thought that was a nice email that was shared with me, and I thought I would share it with you.
Thank you, Teresa. Very nice.
Very good lesson.
Yes, so
Yes.
thank you to Rihanna Kelly, who shared that with me, and to all of our teachers who kind of take that under their wing every day to work with students that way.
Yeah, different, not less. And that, you said that was a Dr. Grandin?
Temple Grandin, she's pretty well known, woman
well.
with autism. She's,
Okay.
I've watched her speak at something somewhere along the line. She's really amazing. So,
Yeah.
Google her.
Yeah.
You'll find some cool
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Wright.
All right, well, my office is more of that boring behind-the-scenes stuff that no one really knows about. So I was very recently at the New York State Association of School Personnel Administrators Conference, and that is all thanks to Human Resources and a lot of state updates and legal updates. And it's really exciting to hear the advocacy from schools and organizations pushing state ed for relief of a lot of the things that make it very difficult for us to secure teachers in different kinds of ways. So some of the very recent updates include a change in certification with students with disabilities, back to the students with disabilities all grades. So if you are very dinosaur in your certification, my original certification was special education birth through grade 12. And then we went through these phases of certain grades, and whether it was kindergarten 1, 2, 6, 1, 6, and it becomes very difficult for a school if you have a retirement or nobody applies to a younger grade, you have to move somebody with a certification. So they're going back to the students with disabilities, all grades, and what's nice is right now there's a window for anybody that has the students with disabilities 7-12 or students with disabilities 1-6. They just need to apply for this new certification. They don't need to take additional examinations. So that's something huge that allows us to hire differently, for people to move differently. So that's exciting. And then the Office of Certification is examining, also doing the same with science. Right now we know when we had to hire a physics teacher how difficult that was. So now they're going back to the science general certification with specialization in certain things. That will be a huge relief to schools. There's other things with substitutes, teaching assistants.
master's degree requirements. There's going back to the table for APPR discussions, shifting back toward more of a professional development, professional growth model that we had prior to, well, several years ago, gosh, that was before the No Child Left Behind. So going back to more of a professional growth model to set goals and do growth, much like we're seeing with the teachers here, going to model schools, applying this, so showing us how you're perfecting your craft. And also they're looking at a lot of different things with student teaching. And they are seeing that a lot of student teachers or new teachers, they don't even stay 5 years in the field. So all that time, all that effort, all that energy, because they're not feeling successful. So they want to shift student teaching to be more practicable versus technical. And partnering with higher education institutions and schools for that. They're also looking at moving to a literacy UPK-12 certification. So that's another big shift that would help us a lot. And they're also looking to switch from the word equivalent. Right now, when teachers come from a different state and have their teaching certification, it has to be, New York State requires that it be equivalent, which often means that then people have to go back to school, retake the test, apply for certification. You're talking hundreds of dollars and lots of hours. And they were, the Office of Certification, this was the Assistant Commissioner for Teacher Leadership out of NYSED, said that we have, of the applications from out-of-state teachers, only about a third ever see it through because it is so cumbersome, there are so many hoops, and it is so financially burdensome that they don't. So they're also seeing that with students in college, between all the different field experiences, the student teaching, the different exams, the fingerprinting. It's so expensive to try and become a teacher, and now Tier 6 is just not an incentive with their retirements. And so they're looking to look at the whole picture and say, okay, we have a crisis in New York. We cannot get teachers. But what are we doing at New York State Education Department? What barriers are we putting in? And so it's wonderful to have them hearing the schools, hearing the HR organizations, the curriculum organizations, and actually like an open forum, taking this information. So just in my short time here, the difference from the conversations 2 years ago when we were just bringing these things to the table and actually being allowed to bring voice to them, in a sense that we felt they were being heard, to seeing action taken with these certifications and these relief measures is very, from where I sit in the school district, this is very exciting because it seems as though we can give more encouragement to young people who want to go into this wonderful field, to people who are trying to move back from other states, and just the way that we can help our own personnel to grow from teaching assistants to teachers, substitute teachers, more incentives. So it was nerdy, exciting stuff.
Good. Ms. Troutman.
Let's see, at the middle school, we've been busy. We've had a couple field trips. Our 8th graders went to Allegheny State Park a couple weeks ago. They had an amazing time. It was paid through a grant. They rode on coach buses, which some of our kids have never done that before. So it was a really great day. I thank Amy Lauer for organizing all of that and getting the grant filled out, and it was really a good day. Our ENL students went apple picking with Shannon Marsh, and she brought back the apples and they baked, and so it was a pretty cool event for those kids. Last week we had our Zoom parent-teacher conferences. We were pretty booked. And this week, Thursday, we have our in-person, of which we are swamped, which is a great thing. You know, we want our parents to come in and see how their kids are doing, so it's really good. And our kids are working so hard on Aladdin. So Aladdin will be doing the show November 17th and 18th. Someone might have a small part in that, I don't know. But the kids are really working hard, and so we're excited to see that.
So a Zoom parent conference.
Yeah. It's nice because some of our families have small kids, and so what do you do with the kids when you have to come in? It makes it really difficult. So this way they can stay home, the kids can play, and they can talk with the teachers. So, and some of our families don't have transportation either, and it's, you know, we try to be flexible and offer it all.
Technology, Mr. Paskey. Who would have thought? You know?
Never heard of it.
What's going on in high school?
Oh, is it my turn? Triumph,
National Music Honor Society inductions coming up tomorrow before the concert. Tomorrow night is our high school pops concert at 7. The induction ceremony is at 5:30. Of course, everyone is invited to attend that, so it's an exciting evening. We also have parent-teacher conferences in person on Thursday night. Friday's our half day. We'll be having regular classes on Friday, in addition to during our advisement time, we'll be taking our panorama surveys for the beginning part of this year. We've got, we're planning our Veterans Day parade. This year we're going to do something a little different. We're always trying new things, and I have to give a shout out to Kristen Tomaszewski, who always is over the top with this stuff. So we're going to do a breakfast for our veterans that morning. And they're going to leave the high school cafeteria after breakfast, and we're going to do an indoor clapping parade. We're going to have all the kids line the hallways, and we're going to have them go through the high school, then the middle school, and the elementary school. We're just a little bit concerned. We've been really lucky with the weather the past few Novembers, and we're looking forward at some of the, it might not be so good. So we're going to try the indoor thing with a breakfast to honor our veterans, which would be a cool thing. That is going to be Wednesday, 1 second. I think it's the 8th, Wednesday the 8th of November.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep, you are welcome. And then kind of a very recent, within the past 8 or 9 hours, I received information that our school newspaper, once again, has, they've received first place awards for best overall newspaper, service to school, best photograph for Isaac Williams, and best written work in a newspaper, also by Isaac Williams, from the Empire School State Press Association, headquartered at Syracuse University. And they're going to be coming to visit our school on November 16th to award it here, which is pretty cool. And so we're also going to have a small, like a college visitation where kids can go and find out more about Syracuse University. And then we're going to have a little award ceremony here in the library. That's going to be from between 1:30 and 2:30, a combo of that college visitation and the award ceremony. I don't have the timing down yet because Mrs. Reinhardt is in discussions with the lady from Syracuse who's going to be coming to give that, which is incredible. So, I mean, our school paper just continues to win award after award after award. We're very proud of them.
Very.
That's it for today.
Thank you.
Yep.
It's good to hear about the spectator.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. With that, we anticipate the need to enter an executive session to discuss collective bargaining agreements. So if I could have a motion to enter into executive, please.
So
We're also going to add a personnel matter to that as well.
Okay. Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. We are now in executive session. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, so he's been home.